What if I told you that for over 300 years, the most powerful rulers in Europe weren't actually in control? Behind every crowned king stood a silent society, guiding, influencing, and sometimes manipulating. Their secrets were so protected, most people don't even know they existed. Until now. This is their terrifying legacy. Beneath golden thrones and velvet curtains, a hidden power shaped the history of Europe. They didn't wear royal robes, they didn't hold armies, but they pulled the strings of kings, queens, even popes. Their influence spanned over 300 years behind the scenes of every major royal decision, from marriages to wars, crowning ceremonies to sudden assassinations. They went by a quiet name, one whispered in old churches and burned in coded scripture, the Priory of Sion. You've maybe heard that name in movies or novels. Maybe you've dismissed it as myth. But what if I told you the real story is bigger than any conspiracy theory, more dangerous than any rumor, and very, very real? Let's dive into the underground brotherhood that reshaped history from the shadows. Let's start in the year 1099. Europe is soaked in blood. The First Crusade has just ended. Jerusalem has fallen to Christian forces. Entire cities are being wiped out in the name of faith. And in the middle of that chaos, a small group of knights quietly form an oath-bound brotherhood. They weren't all soldiers. Some were monks. Some were architects. But all of them had seen something in the East that changed everything. They called themselves the Order of Sion. Most people think they were just another band of knights, but behind closed doors, their mission was different. They weren't trying to conquer territories, they were trying to protect something ancient and incredibly dangerous. And here, in the burned heart of the Holy Land, begins one of history's most insane underground missions to implant hidden truths into the highest levels of European power. When they returned to Europe, they didn't disappear. They infiltrated courts, cathedrals, and noble houses. And they weren't working randomly. They had a plan, a long-term, multi-generational plan to direct the future of Europe from behind the scenes. Now, imagine this. A group of men sworn to secrecy, embedding themselves inside royal councils, advising kings, guiding wars, rejecting certain coronations, and pushing others. They weren't official rulers, but they had more influence than those wearing the crown. Historians uncovered strange documents from cathedrals in Avignon, meeting logs, letters of strategic marriages planned years in advance, all pointing back to one organization, the Priory of Sion. And here is where things get scary. The Priory wasn't just trying to influence politics. They believed they were guardians of a holy bloodline, a sacred lineage that had to survive at all costs. According to texts that surfaced in the 1960s in France, real ones, not fiction, this bloodline traced back to Jesus Christ himself. You heard that right. A belief that after the crucifixion, Jesus' bloodline continued and that his descendants quietly intermingled with European royalty over the centuries. Now, whether that's true or not, what matters is that they believed it. And people who believe they're guarding something holy, they'll do anything to protect it, even reshape nations, even start wars, even eliminate threats. This belief became the Priory's strategy. They championed specific royal families that could protect the bloodline, installed key religious advisors who shared the mission, and behind every marriage alliance of the Middle Ages, you'll find hidden in the sidelines a strange pattern, one that all links back to the Merovingians. Now, let's talk about that for a second. You know how certain names keep popping up in royalty, like Habsburg, Bourbon, Tudor. But long before all of them, there was a dynasty called the Merovingians. They ruled parts of France and Germany in the 5th to 8th centuries. To the public, they died out completely. To the Priory, they survived in secret. According to archives hidden in South France and only made public in the 20th century, These bloodlines continued underground, secured by secret marriages and protected by clever deceptions. And guess who was placing them there? Yep, the Priory. They believed the Merovingian line was descended from Mary Magdalene and Jesus themselves. A sacred responsibility rested on them. Keep the bloodline alive, keep it in power, keep it secret. Anything less was dangerous. But guarding this secret wasn't easy, because right alongside the Priory, another power was rising: the Catholic Church. The Church didn't believe in political competition, and they certainly didn't support the idea that Jesus had children. Such a claim would have shattered doctrinal foundations, rewritten biblical history, and torn their structure apart. So when strange documents started popping up, when royal marriages looked suspicious, when whispers of secret societies crept into monasteries, the Vatican reacted like any multi-billion-dollar institution does when threatened. It fought back. And the first strike was brutal. In 1307, under alleged charges of heresy and worshipping false idols, the Pope, in secret alliance with King Philip IV of France, ordered the arrest of the Knights Templar. Why them? Because the Knights Templar weren't just warriors. They were the military branch of the Priory. And in one day, Friday the 13th, hundreds were arrested, tortured, or burned alive. Sound familiar? Yeah, that's actually where Friday the 13th gets its dark reputation. But the Priory didn't die there. They just went deeper underground. Names changed, documents were scattered, leadership restructured, but the mission? Unchanged. But guarding this secret wasn't easy, because right alongside the Priory, another power was rising: the Catholic Church. The Church didn't believe in political competition, and they certainly didn't support the idea that Jesus had children. Such a claim would have shattered doctrinal foundations, rewritten biblical history, and torn their structure apart. So when strange documents started popping up, when royal marriages looked suspicious, when whispers of secret societies crept into monasteries, the Vatican reacted like any multi-billion-dollar institution does when threatened. It fought back. And the first strike was brutal. In 1307, under alleged charges of heresy and worshipping false idols, the Pope, in secret alliance with King Philip IV of France, ordered the arrest of the Knights Templar. Why them? Because the Knights Templar weren't just warriors. They were the military branch of the Priory. And in one day, Friday the 13th, hundreds were arrested, tortured, or burned alive. Sound familiar? Yeah. That's actually where Friday the 13th gets its dark reputation. But the Priory didn't die there. They just went deeper underground. Names changed, documents were scattered, leadership restructured. But the mission unchanged. Now fast forward again to the French Revolution. As the elite class was dragged into the streets, beheaded by mobs, one thing stands out amid the chaos. A large number of aristocrats executed in the early weeks were secretly tied to Merovingian bloodlines. We're talking mathematical probability defied. That's not a coincidence. That's a targeted purge. And many Priory scholars today believe this wasn't random. It was orchestrated by certain church-aligned revolutionaries who had infiltrated the movement. But the Priory wasn't finished. In 1956, a bizarre collection of documents, known as the Dossiers Secrets, was quietly filed at France's National Library. Inside, a full genealogy tracing bloodlines from Merovingian kings all the way to modern European leaders. Maps linking secret Priory locations across France and Switzerland. And most chilling of all, lists of alleged living descendants, some of whom were still holding political office. Now, these papers were dismissed by many as fabrications, but others, they pointed out how certain names and connections matched uncannily with royal records, ones never made public and not digitized. So how did the authors know? Unless they were part of it. Here's the thing. We may never know the full truth about the Priory's operations, but what we can prove is this. their name appears across centuries of documentation. Their influence is echoed through powerful families, and their mission statement, however wild it sounds, has never changed. Protect the bloodline, quietly control power, outlast every king, pope, or empire. And if they really do still exist, then odds are they're still watching. Still moving chess pieces, still seated behind the throne. The question is, who's really in charge of your world? Maybe it's not just ancient history we're talking about. Maybe it's how power really works, even today. For every political figure you see, there's always a network behind them. For every major decision, there's always someone in the shadows. That's the real lesson here. The world isn't run by who you think. And history? It's not just written by the winners. It's written by the ones who never show their face. What would you have done in their shoes? Protect the bloodline or expose the truth? If this blew your mind, wait till you see what happened during the lost years of Jesus. That story's next.